Elizabeth asked me to talk about the way of practice when you have to look after a household. And really it comes in one word, in sati, mindfulness. That's the key to it all. Because if you can really be mindful, then you can, as Ajahn Mun said to Ajahn, he said, if you're mindful, you're doing practice. If you're not mindful, it doesn't matter whether you're walking chomkram or sitting in samadhi, it's not practice. Mindfulness is the essential thing there. And it's very necessary too. It is the key factor. And to the extent that one's got mindfulness, one's practice will improve and develop. Because the main trouble we have when we do meditation practice is distraction. And in fact, the distraction is exactly the opposite of being mindful. The wandering mind is the mind that won't stay still, won't stay where it is. In fact, one can go further that if the mind is in the present, the mind is in as near to reality as it can get. Whereas if it's wandering into the past and future or at a distance, it's away from reality. The reason here is that when we look at past and the future, the past is something which we remember. We can never go into the past. We can go into memory. But when we go into memory, we do it in the present. We don't go into the past. Nobody can go into the past. Nor can anyone go into the future. The future is just a prediction of what's going to come about based on one's experience of the past. Because of that, one can't go into the future or the past. One's always stuck in the present. And this is where the reality is. There's nowhere else it can be. So the more one keeps to the present, the more one keeps to what's real. And the more one keeps mindful, the more one keeps to the present and what's real. So the key to it all is mindfulness. As to the actual doing of the meditation practice, the sitting down and doing it, and the walking chomkram and so on, one often finds, I think most people who are looking after a house, they often find that the trouble is they've got so much to do, but when they do get a bit of spare time, they're exhausted. They're very tired. In that case, the best thing to do is to sit down and don't try to do a specific practice, but just go over yourself and just get feeling, look at feeling, how you feel. Why does one feel this way? What are these feelings? And try and get down to what one actually experiences. What does it mean to be tired? When one feels tired and exhausted, what is it? You find mostly it's feeling. Feeling is very important. The more you can get to know feeling, the better it is. You can see the importance of feeling in the well-known Paticca Samuppada, the 12 Nidanas, because you go round till you come to feeling. Now the next step after feeling is tanha, craving. So that's where the kilesas come up. And the kilesas come up because of feeling. Feeling is the thing which arouses them. So if one can put a barrier between the feeling and the craving, one stops the kilesas. They can't come up. The main trouble is that we usually get caught by it because of habit. We have feeling coming up, and immediately up comes the tanha, the cravings. The only way to overcome that is to learn the method of going inward. Because the feelings mostly arise around the solar plexus. That's the area, around the solar plexus. And when feeling arises from some kamma, supposing in the past one's been angry, and that anger can give rise to feeling in the present. If something triggers it off. when it's triggered off, the feeling arises, and the feeling is a feeling of unbalance. One's out of balance there. When one's out of balance, one tries to get back to balance. And the usual way is by habit, going out and blaming something. If it's anger, if it's greed, one goes out searching for something. And this is the normal way of overcoming that. But the trouble is that doing that creates karma. And it only makes the situation worse. Because the situation comes back on one later on. In other words, it just rolls on. So the thing one has to do, if one can, is to turn inward and look at that feeling. And to realize how dangerous it is. To realize that feeling, if one gives way to it, that creates karma. And the karma that it creates will come back on one as unpleasant feeling in the future. If one can overcome it, if one can look at that feeling and let it ride, don't take too much notice of it, then the whole thing will gradually get less. And the anger or the greed or whatever it is will gradually die away, bit by bit. It won't go suddenly. Habits don't die just suddenly. But they can be slowly got rid of. And what's most important is that once one's learnt to do this, any feeling that arises, one automatically goes to it and one thinks, what's this? One looks at it and one realizes this can be dangerous. And it's almost like a red flag coming up. It warns one. And one immediately turns inward then to say, well, I mustn't let this get out of hand. This is a very important part of the training and to learn about feeling in oneself. Insofar as the household work is concerned, the only thing to do there is try and be mindful, try and keep one's mind on what one's doing, and try and keep it from wandering to other things. It's about all, really. And it's simple, but very difficult. Nobody says it's easy.
Is the craving to practice, the frustration and the craving to practice, a closer in itself?
Yes. Yes. If there's a sort of frustration there, because really speaking, one can do the practice anywhere and at any time. Again, if one is mindful, and one keeps one's mind on what one's doing, if one has a parikamma, like breathing, one can use that. And that's feeling too. Feeling of the breath. And if one's got that, and one's got that habit going, then if you're sweeping the floor or washing the dishes or whatever it is, you can keep your mind on your breathing as well. Just keep it there. And that's the... it's really, you want some refuge for the mind. The mind's always looking for a refuge. And it jumps to things, looking for something that's pleasant. And this is why it goes into distraction, because it's always searching. And it searches everywhere. It searches in memory, searches the past, the future, the distance, events that have happened. All the time it's jumping about, looking for a refuge. And the thing is to find out what is a real refuge, what is a good refuge for it. And the only place you'll find the real refuge is internally, not outside. And that refuge internally can become perfect if one works hard enough. Firstly, it becomes good when one gets some degree of samadhi, some degree of calm. Because when one gets calm, the mind becomes concentrated, and the concentrated mind is happy, and gets a degree of happiness from it. Later, if one goes on further, one finds that one can search inwardly and see where the kilesas are, and slowly learn how to overcome them. And when one's overcome them enough, one might come to the point where one actually sees the goal a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. And when one sees that, the interest in the world drops away straight away. Because one sees that's the real refuge. That's the only thing one wants. And if that happens, one won't be satisfied until one's got that the whole time. But that's inside.
The hardest test of all, I've found, is the responsibility to discipline a defiant 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And when you're faced with something you know you have to do,
Yeah.
and you want to do it with compassion,
Yeah.
but you can just lose it.
Yeah. The trouble is, if one has metta, one can usually do that all right. The difficulty is that when one has to bring up discipline of that sort, the tendency is to go immediately to anger. It's the wrong way, really. If one can go to metta and to say quite level and straight what should be and what's right and where the young child's gone wrong, then it's more acceptable, both to oneself and the child. Anger is not good. Although a person who tends to anger can also tend to a mind which sees dukkha. As they see dukkha, then they see the reason for getting free. When they see the reason for getting free, it gives them a reason to strive. And it produces effort. If a person tends to lobha, it doesn't do that. It's more, they tend to relax. Because of that, the person with lobha can go more easily into samadhi, but they're not inclined to effort. So each person has to find out what their own kilesas are and try to overcome them. Because each person's an individual, and each person has kilesas, and although the kilesas are the same type in each person, the exact way they come up and the exact associations of them are quite different from person to person. And each person has kilesas which arise in their own environment. The subject of environment is one that's worth looking at, because wherever we are, at any time, that is our environment, just at that moment. That's where we are, that's what we know, that's what the situation is externally as well. And if we get to know how we react to each of our environments, we get to know ourselves. We get to know what we are and how we work. It's like I said before, the whole thing is we've got that inside ourselves, that chitta, pure chitta, which is like a jewel. But we can't see it because there's a lot of muck covering it up. It's like all the kilesas, they act like a lot of muck sort of wrapping around it, and you can't see it. And one's task is to overcome that. The thing is, when one's like that inside, one looks internally and one can't see anything that's good. And when one can't see anything that's good, one tends to look for a refuge outside. Because of that, people go out into the world searching for money, for goods, for position, for power, everything. And you can say really that people are also addicted to bodies. People like playing with bodies, they like grasping at bodies, they like becoming bodies. And people are addicted to bodies, but when they're addicted to bodies, they have to put up with the vicissitudes of the body, the pleasantness and the unpleasantness. And there's plenty of both. But mostly it's unpleasant. Because the body is very complex, and we can't really control it the whole time. We can't stop it getting sick. We can't stop it decaying, getting old, and finally we can't stop it dying. And the way the body goes is just its own way, really. The body belongs to the world, because it comes from the world. It goes back to it. In fact, we have to live in a world that is adapted to this body. This body is something which requires air, requires water, it requires something to live on, which is the ground. It requires energy, it requires heat. All these things come from the world. It requires food as well. All these things come from the world. And because of this body is really just part of this world. It's part of the world, it belongs to the world. We've grasped at it. And we've grasped at it, and when we've grasped at it, we grasp at it as ourselves. When we grasp at it as ourselves, we have to put up with the troubles that come about because of it. And when we put up with the trouble, when we get the troubles that come with it, we find it's very unpleasant. We don't like it. We don't like growing old. We don't like sickness. We don't like the things we meet in the world very often. And this is the way it is. If we grasp at bodies, we come back to bodies. And all the time, people, when they come to die, immediately they grasp at a new body. Or if they can't grasp at a new one straight away, they create one. They create an environment to live in. They can do that. And they live there temporarily, then they probably come back to a human body again, or whatever it is. So people go on according to their karma, according to what they've done, because people make their own future. And when they make their future, they have to put up with what that future is, what they've made. And you can see, if you look, you can see how people in the environment they're in have made their future in that environment. I mean, the villagers running buffalo around a field do that because they've made that environment. This is what they know. This is what they've grasped at. A person who's a businessman has made that environment because that's what he grasps at. And so it is with everyone. They grasp at their own environment, what they know. We must have all grasped some hot weather as well. In doing the practice, the investigation of the body is very important indeed. Ajahn Mun said how he used to practice doing samadhi, and he said for about 3 months he got nimittas, images coming up time after time after time, all sorts. And after 3 months he stopped and he sort of reviewed and thought, well, what have I gained from that? And he saw he gained nothing. So he stopped. And he said, from now on I do body contemplation. And he did this. And he found it very difficult. He persisted until finally he broke through and found out the value of body contemplation. The most valuable thing. It's interesting that Sariputta, whenever anybody went to him for meditation practice, he always gave them body contemplation. Every time. Just that. because we don't realize how much we're attached to the body. It's very important to us. And we can't even imagine what it would be like without the body. We're very much attached to the body, and because of that we should look at it. In the Karmatana circles, it's called the body city, because it's got everything there. So it's got the kitchen and the kitchen sink as well. And the lot there. It's got the living room, it's got everywhere. It's all inside. And if one looks inside, one can find it. And one can wander about in the body city. But it's not easy to get to that point, because the kilesas don't like it. And the kilesas tend to cause distraction when one tries body contemplation. One can even get, when one does body contemplation, one can even get some anger coming up at other times, and one doesn't realize what it comes from. It comes from the kilesas being thwarted. And they build up a sort of feeling of being, as they say, like a bear with a sore head. And the body contemplation can do that. Because of that, somebody who does body contemplation should also do a practice like the Anapanasati, or cool off, or Buddha, or Metta even one can do. Just to sort of cool off and to prevent it getting into states of anger. But the body contemplation is really worthwhile. For some strange reason it's not propagated much in the West. Very few people talk about it. And I don't know, it must be that they don't realize how valuable it is.
Body contemplation, if I would get immediately try this peaceful, like freeing feeling, and then I get this grief.
Then?
Grief, very deep grief and a kind of anxiety, not a direct fear, but just this anxious, very anxious feeling. And then I start thinking, and then I lose
the grief is normal. Because it's the grief at seeing what this body is and how one's been caught out by it. But the anger or distraction that comes up afterwards, that's kilesas.
Yeah. It feels almost grief, not about grief like it's my close friend which is on it. Like this whole thing is a quick waste, waste.
Yes, it is. That's right.
All these things that were important to me are just
yeah,
nothing.
that's right.
And it's just like
yeah.
And then I guess it's just another strengthening the trust to let go of.
After all, that's the truth, isn't it? All these things aren't important. All the things one sort of works for, in other words, all the things one's put refuge in the world. Because you can never get at those things in the world. However you try, you can never make them yours. They're only yours by convention. Now to say I own a car, owning the car doesn't change the car. It's just the attitude, it's the convention. The same with money. Owning money doesn't change the money. All it does is change one's mind, one's attitude, and outlook. And the reality of the situation is one can never own these things. You can't own anything that's separate from yourself. Because of that, the only thing you can own is your own chitta. And that's the key to the whole thing, the chitta. But to get to the chitta is very difficult. Because you can't get to it like you can get to other things. I mean, when we get to things and we say that that's mine, in fact it's separate from us. We can only know it because it's separate. And while it's separate, we can't say that it's mine. It's only mine by convention. That's true of the body too. The thing is, the chitta, you can say is mine because it's me. It's the central thing. And it's the chitta, but the chitta can't know itself in the way we know other objects. It knows itself from its own existence. Well, we call it existence is the wrong word, but still, it gets so, the logic gets twisted round there.
Being so close to my brother for so long when he was dying was very valuable experience for me, and it actually made me feel a lot stronger and a lot more confident about death.
Yes.
But I used to often feel like I was using him in a way, because I was distancing myself and observing, and also helping, as much as I could.
Yeah.
But I thought it was at his cost.
We should use whatever we can to break the kilesas. Doesn't matter. After all, what is death? It's the break-up of this body. If one looks at the body as self, it's the break-up of oneself. If one sees the body as separate, something other, then it's just the break-up of the body. And when the body breaks up, all the faculties of the body break up. What's left is the kamma. And that kamma and the chitta which goes with it, the kamma and the chitta's there, and the kamma comes up, creates an environment from the past somewhere, and grasps at it. And the kamma that was from the past then impresses that which is reborn, or born. But the one that's born is not the one that dies. It has the same impressions there. It's not the same person. You can't say it's different either, because it's not somebody else who receives the kamma.
So there are elements in common in all chittas as well as individual impressions. Is there that commonality as
Chitta, the trouble with the chitta is it's like space. It's something that you can't pin down. So if one talks about chittas, it's not right. If one talks about one chitta, it's not right. However you talk about it, it will be wrong.
Right.
So the thing is, the chitta is infinitely flexible and adaptable. And you can see what happens there. The 5 khandhas, the body is the base that we have. Then you get the 4 khandhas, feeling, memory, thought and consciousness. Now, these aren't separate things within one at all. These are the chitta. And the chitta performs the function of feeling. Then it perhaps changes to the function of consciousness. And it's the function of memory. It forms the function of memory. And then the function of thinking. It's jumping about. And these are just functions of the chitta. And because of that, you can't say that these 4 have any separate existence at all. It's like a cinema screen. You see the images on the cinema screen changing about all the time. You don't see the cinema screen.
So what is left?
Reality. But one must realize that reality means permanence. And existence means sensation. And the essence of existence is impermanence. Yes, the essence of existence is change. Impermanence. It's always moving. It's dynamic. Whereas reality is permanent, so that what exists is not real.
And what changes at death?
What changes the forms?
Yeah, but how can some choose to not be reborn at that time, or
No, it isn't a choosing not to be reborn. It's not a choice, so to speak. It's just that there's nothing there to create that. There's nothing there to bring that about. Because that is brought about, rebirth is brought about by the craving for something. If there's no craving there, just let it be as it is. It's all right.
I was referring back to that temporary delay in rebirth that we were talking about at the beginning of the talk.
Yeah. There's a temporary delay.
In rebirth?
There can be, but if there's a delay in rebirth, that's another birth, another life. Maybe in a created realm. Chitta is quite capable of doing that. Again, one must be careful of time, because one thinks of immediacy, but immediacy involves time. And there's no reality in time. Time is something which is purely man-made. It's made from the mind. Past time is memory. Past time is memory. And that's the only way we can get at past time. It's what creates time, the past. Prediction is the future, based upon memory. The only reality is the present. And the present is not changing. The present is permanent. And it's everything that changes around it.
The present is permanent?
Yes.
At that...
No, you can't say at that time, because there's no time.
Okay.
You can't imagine it.
No.
I mean, in other words, if one comes to the present, everything disappears. And you're left with a chitta, pure chitta.
Why can't we all do that?
Tanha. Tanha is the answer. If we could all do that, it'd save all the problems, but the trouble is that we can't. Ajahn Mun wrote, how did he put it now? If we'd had no craving anywhere of any sort, we would never have got into this situation.
So where does the craving come from?
That's the big question. Nobody knows. Came from the past. But the thing is, all we can say is that there is craving. But if you want to know where it came from, well, as the Buddha may have said, it wouldn't help you. It doesn't help you. He said, like the man shot with an arrow. He said, it's no good asking where the arrow was made and where it comes from and who shot it and so on. You've got to pull it out first. And it's the same here. You've got to deal with the problems that we have. You've got to deal with these cravings, these kilesas. And if one can do that, maybe one will know the answer to all the rest. Fundamentally, one can say the only reality is the chitta. And obviously, if one can get to that, then one knows everything. but one must be careful about what that means, knows everything. I mean, it doesn't mean you know how many grains of sand there are in the Ganges or anything of that sort. That isn't knowledge. The thing is, when one says, what do we know? We know seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching, and thinking. And when we know that, we realize that what we know of seeing is forms, shapes. And we know those shapes and colours. Of sound, it is just sound. Of smell and taste, it's just smell and taste. And feeling, it's just feeling, pleasant, painful, neutral. That's what we know. And these vary over a certain range, and that's all you can say. And the whole lot's put together with those. And that's a lot. So if one knows all those, one knows the whole lot. People think of the world and the universe as being terrifically large. It's not. It's no bigger than one's senses. That's all. What's really big is inside one. But most people are afraid to go to that. It's difficult. Oh, chitta. The thing is, if one allows it to go like that, it'll go. And one's got to learn how to control it. That is one of the most important things, yes. Keep the sati there, and if it goes in one direction, you can't stop the feelings coming up, because this is a matter of karma. It's the results of karma. What you can stop is yourself getting involved in it. I mean, as the Buddha said, when one gets a pleasant feeling, one knows one has a pleasant feeling. You know, that's just it. One just knows. Now, if it's a painful feeling, one knows it's a painful feeling. However it is, one knows it. That's all. And that's enough. One doesn't crave for it to be like this or to be like that, to have it change or whatever. And one just accepts that's it. Sinasata Satipatthana Sutta, you look.
I've asked things before, but you know, I don't think before you've answered me, you just said find out for yourself. But when intuition or dharma arises, where does it come from?
The thing is, if it's intuition in the sense of the Dhamma, it comes from the chitta, because there's two things in the chitta, the Dhamma and there's the kilesas. And normally, in most people, the kilesas are on top. They're the boss. But if one practices, then the Dhamma can arise. And if the Dhamma arises, that's where the intuition will come from.
How does the Dhamma arise through the kilesas? Is that just through some sort of clearing of clearing of the cloud, or what happens?
What happens is that one's mind is not always entirely involved in the kilesas. You've got the fundamental three. This is the thing, and it's because of the delusion, the greed and hate come up as well. And the delusion is very important. It's the most important of the three kilesas there, three basic kilesas. And this delusion leads one to interpret things in the wrong way, mostly memory. But if one has some intuitive knowledge comes up, then it will come up and one will interpret it in a certain way. The interpretation will be deluded. But it doesn't mean to say that the information isn't correct.
How can one disengage from interpreting? Not go through that process but shortcut it?
By an analysis of exactly what comes up. Feeling, or is it sight, nimitta, is it a dream? Whatever comes up, say that was feeling. Or that was just sight object, or smell, or whatever it was.
And does knowing when to act or not to act according to this come with maturity of practice?
If one has, intuition coming up, and one's had it often in one's life, and one has learned to know when it's correct and when it's not, that is a faculty one's got. And then one must obviously act according to that faculty and what it tells you.
That's dangerous, isn't it?
Well, if you've learned to rely on it, if you can rely on it, then you can use it to some extent. This is the way with the people who have automatically got this sort of faculty. But one must be careful in using it, obviously. In other words, it may tell you to avoid certain things or to go in for certain things, and that's all right. But one must be very careful about telling other people about that.
Is inaction harmful too?
Is
inaction harmful too? I mean, if you just send everything away and disengage, is that harmful too?
Well, inaction means the one doing an act. The act of inaction.
A lack of an action.
In other words, even inaction is a volition. It's a choice. One has to see whether that's the right choice or not. One can. It may not be easy. I mean, doing nothing is sometimes the best thing, depending on the situation.
Pañña told me yesterday, she said that Ajahn said, told her a long time ago, keep your eyes open, your ears open, and your mouth shut.
Right, yes. There's a little poem. I can put it this way. A wise old owl who lived in an oak. An old wise old owl who lived in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Bhikkhus should imitate that wise bird. It was originally given in the First World War to soldiers.
That's a sort of loose lipstick shit. That sort of. That's going to be pretty hard.
Yep.
It's going to be very difficult with the recording.
Recording, it's working all right, I think, yeah. Oh, yes, it's a bit of noise, yes. But it's coming, it's all right, it's picking it up all right. This is directional.
Would I be allowed to ask a personal question?
For?
A personal question?
Yeah.
No, not that personal. When I saw that tape of your ordination,
Yeah.
there was just so many things going around you and people pressing onto you and I wondered if you knew what you were getting into when you started out and whether you had any difficulties with your resolve, to keep going.
No, the thing is, when I was ordained, I'd sort of thought about it for some time and I wanted to do it. And it didn't seem like a big change. It's just a natural thing to do. And when the ordination came on, well, I knew it was going to be a big sort of palaver, and you don't take much notice of that. I mean, the ordination itself, one feels so one's a bit stoned. Stoned.
Yeah.
So you sort of just let it all go, let it all pass, that's all. And afterwards, it's all over.
But it seems to be historically and politically such an interesting thing, and I hadn't realised what, sort of Thailand, what that means.
Yes.
Or was that just a commentator?
Oh, that's the commentator. The commentator is terrible. Yes, I don't know who did the commentator, and it wasn't good. The film itself, well, that was all right. But the way they'd arranged it, in Wat Paknam, there is what they call a library building. The place where we stayed was here, and the boat was right over here. And we had to go walk from this in this procession, right the way around to the boat. With this dragon in front.
It looks more like a funeral.
Like a?
It looks more like a funeral like Ajahn.
Yeah, it does, Charlie, yes. So then we had the three, I think they were Navy people, with the umbrellas over us.
Did you get carried on the shoulders?
No, we were sort of walking like this.
One of the vicars of Italy, ordained in Thailand, he said they raised him around 500
I don't know about that, no, we didn't have that. But the book about Kapi, it's not good.
No. But Pañña said he was actually a kind man. He said he was very kind.
Yeah, in a way. But he was also very full of his own importance. He thought he was arrogant. And he left the road, and anyway, he's still sort of saying more or less indicating that he was arrogant. I just said I don't see how he makes it out. He didn't like it at all.
What stage did you meet Pañña?
What stage?
Stage in between that and how did you meet Pañña?
Well, the thing is, when we went to Wat Paknam, we did the meditation practice of Lumpur Wat Paknam.
Who was on the tape?
I'm not sure. I think he may have been a little bit on the tape, yes. I can't remember now. But he was good man. And the practice he did, the initial stages of it were quite valid, quite good. And they led to calm, led to samatha. And it was an important practice in that way. But beyond that, I didn't know what he was getting at. I could never make any sense of it. So later, when I left what Pañña, I dropped that because I worked out that to do a practice when you can't see how it's going to work doesn't increase one's confidence in it. And that's likely to make the practice not good. So I turned and did Anapanasati, did what the Buddha did. And that was all right to do that. And I changed and did that, and that was all right. I went somewhere. But after that, when I went back to England, I knew that we should find a good teacher sometime. And I met a Thai person in the UK, and this person he was a student in London. And I told him when he comes back to Thailand, he should try and find out who the good teachers are, where they are. And he returned to Thailand before I came out there. And he came up to the northeast here. And he had the job of researching the economic resources of the Mekong Basin in terms of what minerals and what is economically valuable there. And when he came up this area, he used to stay in Watts. And before long he found out about Thanachan Mun and his followers. So when I came to Thailand, he knew who the good teachers were. And at that time, Thanachan Mahabua used to go down to Bangkok because his Upachaya, Panchakundamachedi, was sick. And he went down to Bangkok 3 or 4 times, and I met him there. And I asked him if I could come and stay here with him. And he agreed, so I came up.
And the others have fallen by the wayside already?
Yeah, a long time ago. I should say within the ordination they all gave up the robe within 1 year. Kathy reordained a long time after that. But I don't know, I can't say what he was like then, I don't know. Evidence shows that fundamentally he hadn't changed very much. I mean, he was he had quite a good intellect. I wouldn't have said he was brilliant, but he was a good intellect. And he's got a good knowledge of the sort of standard party line of the Dhamma, Buddha Dhamma. And I learned quite a lot from him in that way. But it's a trouble for Westerners coming out to Thailand or any of these countries. Many people have come out and they've stayed maybe up to 5 years. Then they go back to the West and they haven't really got anywhere. And because of that, within a few years they give up the road. They get disillusioned. Because unless you get actual experience of Dhamma in yourself, there isn't anything to hold you next. When you get to know the theory is still isn't the real thing. It's just the basis. It's like a skeleton. You've got to put some meat on it. And if they can't get the meat on it, then there's nothing there, nothing to hold them. So you get people sometimes bhikkhus about 15 years in Sangha, and then they give up the road somewhere. And people then wonder why.
That comes on.
Yeah, that sort of thing, yes. People wonder why after they've been so long, you see. But people don't know what the story is, what the background of that is.
You know, they're still selling Panchakala's book in Bangkok.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was only all I did was stop at the airport hotel. And
I haven't read it, I don't know what.
It's a classic.
Is it?
Well, it's been reprinted so many times.
Yeah. The other thing that people, Westerners, make a big mistake at is teaching too early. They teach before they understand it properly themselves. Now, this isn't the right way. It's what Ajahn calls lak chai. Lak chai means some basic principle in one's heart. Something firm that's real there. If one's got that, it's all right. One can do it. If that's lacking, there's nothing there.
He's been very strict about this, hasn't he?
See?
He's been very strict about
About what?
About not letting people teach until they're ready.
No, he's not like that. What he says is that anybody can go and teach if they like, but he won't necessarily agree with it. It'll depend on who it is and what they teach and how. But some people he'll say straight away before they teach that he won't agree with it. I mean, somebody who teaches too early is not good, because it almost takes something out of them. It makes them more restless and less able to do their own practice.
So is the answer to stay with the teacher, or
Yes, if one's got a good teacher, it's worth staying with the teacher. I mean, I've been asked to go back to the West several times, but I refused. The thing is that I know what it's like. I know what to expect, and it's not fun.
the teachers?
Yeah, it's not fun at all. In fact, really, a person shouldn't teach until they don't want to. Then maybe they can do it then.
Does this mean you don't want to be here now?
Well, the thing is that the thing about teaching, one does make good karma. That's important too. And sometimes one learns things. Because when one's telling somebody something, suddenly you see something you haven't seen before. That can come up. Because of that, one can learn things from it very often. I found that anyway. But some people are good at teaching, some are not. You get very few who are really good at teaching, I think. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they are arahant or not. Some can teach, some can't. Ajahn is excellent. So Ajahn Pañña is apparently excellent too. But people like Lumpur Boar, the long saying, he was apparently not very good at teaching. He was arahant too, but he was good at teaching. And it was the same between the difference between Ajahn Man and Ajahn Sao, his teacher. His teacher, he couldn't teach much. What he said was true and excellent. There wasn't very much.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What he said was true, and it was excellent, but he didn't say very much. Apparently he'd just say one or two sentences and then stop like that.
a few who they can fix quite well.
Few?
A few that there's an affinity.
Yes, yeah, that's true. There are, yes, yes. I mean, after all, he was teacher to Ajahn Mun, and that made quite a difference to him.
I mean, it's what we celebrate on Makaputa Day. The fact that people can listen.
Yes.
That celebration always gives me hope for some reason. I always find it very positive and optimistic.
Yes, well, that was the coming together of the 1,000 Arahants, spontaneously. Nowadays, you have a job finding 10 Arahants.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Thailand seems to be going a bit new age too, from what Thai friends have told me.
Going to?
A bit new age in their sort of quest for teachers and teachings.
Yes, there's some truth in that. In the Sangha, there's a tendency for new sects to arise. And it's not with, mostly they're no good. I mean, if they were good sects, it wouldn't matter so much. If they were really propagating what the Buddha taught, it wouldn't matter. I mean, like in China, the Zen sect started up, Chan in China, and that was a genuine teaching. But most of the ones that start up now, they start up from the basis of somebody's conceit. And that's not a good basis to start from.
Is it a response, do you think, to the situation in Thailand as well?
Well, part of it is that the Sangha in Thailand is in most places in a mess. I mean, there's a very large number of bhikkhus. There's a number who are actually keeping the rules and doing what they should do. There's not so many. And the main danger to the Sangha in Thailand is the bhikkhus who are not doing what they should do. And some people say the Catholics are the trouble, but it's not the Catholics. They can't do anything if the Sangha's in a good state. They can't do anything at all. I mean, anyway, the number in Thailand isn't enough to make much difference. No, the thing that matters is the bhikkhus in the Sangha itself. They're the main danger. And I mean, in the cities generally, particularly Bangkok, I mean, it's been commented on how they sort of wander around the shops looking at things and buying things with their own money, if they've got no yarn and things like that. All this leads people to sort of think that they're worthless. That's why so many come here. Because they find something genuine. Strange. A lot of people have said to me that they come to this Wat and they say it feels special. Living here, it doesn't for me. I don't know what people find out.
But I think people ask me about most in Thailand, and I realize that I've been really spoiled by being at this lot.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of
Yes.
corruption or
Yes. I mean, Kunpiot came today, the Polish man who lives in Belgium. And he says that he was a bit shocked, I think. He saw the bhikkhus going Pindapata in Pitnalok. Fitznulok, he's staying there. And he said when they give him some food, they look at it to see what it is, you know. It's good.
He ran a Kumo Amma.
Oh yes, yes.
Thomas in time. And she told me that there's now a guide, a business guide to monasteries. And
Yes.
sort of, and they give it a star rating for food or
Oh yes, I've heard of that. Yes, yes, yes.
She was telling me about some of the places and how they rate it and that.
Yeah.
It's just laughing.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think about Nietzsche with not with the white robe, but changing into different colors? But still the 8 precepts.
Well, what colour they wear doesn't really matter very much. What does matter is what their attitude to it is.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I mean, the thing is, if they have the attitude of women's lib, it's not right. This is wrong. But if they have the attitude that it's convenient using that colour, and that they're not trying to be showing anything special, then it doesn't matter. And it's what really matters, though, is what they do, what their practice is.
And for instance, if I have to go back, and there are some nieces in Indonesia, and they already have light yellow color clothes, and they will insist that if I don't change into to follow the custom, then I won't be accepted into their community. So what would you advise in this condition?
Well, you have to know what their customs are first.
Actually, they change the color because of their own will.
Yeah.
Because some people say, why are natives with the shaven head wear the same color clothes with lay people with the 8 precepts also.
Yes.
But they are not shaven.
Yeah.
And so they should be higher. And so they should have a different color of the robe.
If it,
because of some common.
well, it was the common colour of the ascetics, of the Ranikas, the forest dwellers. I mean, it's the colour that it's the jackfruit colour.
And so it will also give similarity towards the monks more than, for example, if they don't change the color, just being white.
Well, if it's a social matter where it can help, it's all right. It doesn't really matter there, but one has to be very careful that they're not getting conceited over it. That's all. This is the main thing. If they get the sort of conceit that they're very high or something, and or even worse, that they criticise others for what they do, then it's going wrong.
Actually, they would preach the right way according to the Dharma theory.
Yeah.
But they're also now starting to the monks go to eat.
Yeah.
They follow, they try to follow the monks' ways more than the 8 precept monks.
Yeah. What one has to do is to try and get at the essence of what's going on there. In other words, what is their real motive? Is it that they want to follow Dhamma truly and practice the way and try and get rid of their kilesas, or is it a social thing?
Yeah. If we see it of course they do the practice.
Yeah.
And they teach also. But this is something behind that they are not shown.
Yes.
But it is obvious, but it's not shown.
Yes.
But their activities are all good. But the motives of changing the color is because of the reasons.
Yes. The thing is here, one's got to see what attitude do they take to other people. If they look on the lay people as being low, beneath them, that's not good. If they look on it, really speaking, what the correct way of looking on it is that you see the Sangha as being a way of life where you can practice properly, and that's all. The conditions of the Sangha enable you to practice without having to go out and do a job of work and live, and to get your living like that. The job of the Sangha is trying to, first of all, purify themselves, and where they can, teach and help other people to do the same. And if that purpose is there, genuinely, then it's all right. But I mean, what so easily happens with people is that they sort of get the idea, oh, we're higher than they are, and then it starts going wrong.
But they will still
comparisons.
They will still teach and try to lead the people in Pañña.
Yes, that's all right if they do that. Yes, as long as they don't get sort of any big ideas about themselves. I mean, because the result of these big ideas, as many of us have seen, is that you get a place full of arahants, the mad arahants. And then it goes all wrong.
But at the same time, we can see their kilesa still,
yeah.
Getting angry easily, and they don't want to be treated lower.
Yeah.
But in doing they try to apply their function. As being,
Now, what you have to do is you have to go and see and keep yourself very aware and get a feel of the place and what they're doing and see whether it's right or not. If it's right, so well and good. If it's not, keep clear.
Just to give away. And not to be involved.
Yeah, if it's got a wrong feel about it.
So we have then we will have a separate or a secluded society again, not being involved with
the point is, whether one puts on robes, whether one shaves one's head, is not the important issue. These are things that are convenient for people so that they can live the life of a monk or a nun, and live and try and practice Dhamma the whole time. The important issue is what one does with one's own chitta, one's own mind. And I mean, there's the example of people, I know two of them anyway, three I know in Bangkok, who have done the practice, and all three have got families. And they're brilliant. They really are. I mean, their minds are very, very good indeed. Very strong samadhi, and a lot of wisdom too. And they've managed to do this. Not many can, but they're good examples. And they're just living the ordinary life. I mean, they're not nuns or anything.
I have a friend from Sri Lanka who was with Pañña, and she was ordained. They ordained 10 piece that brown robe, sounds like icon. That wasn't icon. She's very different now. I mean, she's not a really good person. She's known this monk since she was a child. She was 50. When she ordained, he gave her a little corner to build 2 kutis. And then monk ordained her and said, I can only ordain you 10 precepts, but you're very welcome to keep the clean precepts.
Yeah, that's right, as they wish. Yeah, some do this. But, I mean, then again, keeping the whole of the precepts like that, if that's the training that's necessary for a person, it's good. So each person must find out what's suited to themselves. The thing is that we have to practice the middle way. And the middle way means that the practice we do should be aimed at correcting the out of balance that the kilesas are producing. In other words, if the kilesas are biasing in one direction, one has to put something on this side to bring it back to the middle way. And that can be anything from practicing sort of subtle samadhi to the most rigorous austerities, depending on what's necessary to bring it back to the middle way. That's all. And there's no sort of fixed saying, well, you've got to do this or you mustn't do that. It's not that so much. But you have to do that which will bring you to the middle way, whatever it is. I mean, a person who's got a lot of greed, they have to go in for, if it's the usual one of radha tanha, sex craving like that, you have to go in for contemplating the body and preferably also dead bodies, cemetery contemplations and things like that, in order to overcome that and bring it back to the middle way. And whatever it is, one has to come back to the middle way then, bring it back. And I mean, the rules that were made up by the Buddha were rules really to enable the bhikkhu to feel that he could forget the rules. In other words, he knew if he was keeping those rules, he's okay. He can forget the world. Let the world go, because those rules, more or less, he can say, well, that's right, I'm okay on it. Now, if you read them, they're pretty comprehensive.
Is the term a bhikkhuni, a Theravadan bhikkhuni appropriate?
Is
the term Theravadan bhikkhuni appropriate?
One can say that, yes. The only question is whether one can apply it properly now. Because the story was that the Sangha of bhikkhunis required both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to ordain. And it came to the point where there weren't any bhikkhunis left. They couldn't get ordination, so it died out. There's this modern thing that has come up that there were bhikkhunis ordained in China. The only trouble is, if one wants to really make sure whether it's pure, nobody knows what the purity of it is going back, and exactly where they came from. And the thing is, it's probably not Theravada, it's Sarvastivadin.
It's Mahayana.
Well, it may be Sarvastivadin. As far as I know, there are not actually any Mahayana sects. Mahayana is really the view. The sects are all, I think, Taoist. In other words, in Tibet, you don't get any Mahayana monks. What you get are monks with Mahayana views and practices. But the ordination is Sarvastivadin, which is it's the Hinayana, that is, the Hinayana is Sarvastivadin. And the texts are all in Sanskrit, or in Chinese. But the Sarvastivadin and the Theravadin are not the same thing.
What's the main differences in this?
Main difference is the Sarvastivadin teaching taught the doctrine of momentariness, that everything was made up of moments. That there was in any moment there was an arising, existing, and then dying away sequence. And they had this idea of momentariness. And they had the idea, it's almost a sort of semi-materialism. It's not true materialism. It's a sort of semi-materialism. And they had the idea of the dharmas. The dharmas were the factors of existence. I mean, they were seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, various states of mind, nibbana, what else? I can't remember them now. There's a whole heap of things there which they call the dharmas, and they talk the dharmas. The dharmas are the things which exist, or they arise more or less on their own, it seems. I'm not very clear now. I have read about it, but it's a long time ago and forget the details. The big book on it is the Abhidharma Kosha of Vasubandhu. That compares with the Visuddhimagga in Theravada. But it's not the same, anyway. It's very different.
But it originated from India also, or?
Oh yes.
As a branch, because I never heard of this.
Sarvastivadin. Oh, it's very broad teaching, and it's there in China and in Tibet. Well, it was in Tibet before the Chinese went in, anyway.
From Jainism or Hinduism? Or
oh no, it's from the Buddhism. It's Buddhism. Sarvastivada. The Sarvastivada means that Sarva is all, Vastivada, the way of everything exists.
More complete.
But Theravada is the way of the elders. In other words, it's following the elders who propagated the teaching of the Buddha in Tipitaka, coming from Ananda. Ananda on the side of the Sutta Pitaka, Kassapa on the side of the Vinaya. But there were, in the old days, there were hundreds of schools, all sorts having different views. Some very strange ones. But they're nothing to do with Jainism or Hinduism. Hinduism, one must realize, only started about 1200 years ago. There wasn't any Hinduism before that. It was Brahmanism and the forest dwellers, Savakas, the Aranyakas. And these were this was the old system in India. And I think Hinduism developed after the Muslims. I'm not really sure though. I'm not very good at history. I think it may have been after the Muslim invasion. But the important thing in it all is, does the teaching lead to Nibbana? Does it lead to becoming Arahant? Does it lead to the destruction of the kilesas? This is really the whole thing. If it does that, then it's the teaching of the Buddha.
Theoretically, yes, because they take everything from the Tipitaka. But practically, they haven't touched the heart.
Yeah.
It's only the theory.
In Indonesia.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was like that. Yeah.
So should I just hold on to?
Don't go
or
back.
what should I do? I just stay here, just hide.
Well, it's up to you, really. I mean, you have to decide.
Yes.
The only thing is that if you're in a good situation, don't change it unless you have to. That's all.
We only go for a better offer.
Well, yes, it depends. I mean, if one's in a situation and one changes that situation, one will change it because of pressing reasons. And one must see that the reasons can be various. They can be internal or external. They can be pressure from outside. I mean, because of politics one might not be able to stay. Because in economics one might not be able to stay in the same place. Because of family one might not be able to. Because of obligations of one sort or another. Or because one doesn't want to. Things like that, it depends. Related, yeah. All sorts of things could pressure one. But one has to decide for oneself whether the pressure is enough to make one go or not.
I understand.
But one must try and look with wisdom too. One is trying to assess, if one went back, what would the real situation be? One has to look and see, well, one mustn't be caught up with imaginary situations where you think of the nice side of it, without thinking about what's not so nice. No. One must look very carefully. So, I mean, I can only say from my own point of view, I've had offers for going to the West, quite a number of them, and I haven't bitten. I didn't bite. Because I've seen how people go off, so to speak, half-cocked. They go off without, and it just fizzles. You know the expression, like a gun, if it's half-cocked, if you fire it, and the old muzzle loaders, they just fizzle, they wouldn't go off with a bang. And the same thing with people who go back too early and too quickly, and before they're really strong inside. And well, I know it's it's a tough deal in the West, because there are very few monks and there's a very large number of lay people.
Somebody told me this Buddhism life.
Buddhism?
Buddhism life. You heard of Budweiser light? You haven't heard of it.
The beer?
Bud Light.
But
No, I've heard the name. Yeah.
Lighter than
Oh.
it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
There's Buddhism light there.
Oh, yeah.
It's terrible.
But at the same time, if there were a few really good teachers going back to the West, it would go very quickly. It would catch on very quickly. Because people have dukkha everywhere. They're all looking for a cure to that dukkha. And Buddhism is the way. So that's what it's aimed for. And Christianity aims you to get to heaven. And if you practice it properly, probably you will. But Buddhism doesn't. It gets rid of the discontent, the suffering. And that's what it's aimed for. And if one practices, that's what one will get. Very good. I think we're nearly 45, nearly an hour, no, nearly an hour and a half. The thing is to do the practice now.
So no need to worry about obligations. No
Well,
obligations.
if obligations are necessary, then one has to worry about them. But if there aren't any special obligations there, then one doesn't have to. That's all.
But do you have a feeling that you're bringing the true Dhamma back to the nation? I have this feeling there.
Well, if I'm not strong enough, I don't have to. Because it will not be any use. just like in Paul said,
Mm.
I wouldn't have the courage to do it anyway. But I'm talking about
If one hasn't got the courage to do it, one's not ready for it.
What I'm thinking is that if the condition force me, will force me,
Yeah.
should I just keep, hold on to my view?
Don't worry about that. Don't bother about the future. Wait until the conditions come. Otherwise, one's always trying to think out what might happen if, and then one's spending all the time thinking about what might happen if, like that. If it's this or it's that.
I ask beforehand so that I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
When it happens, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I know what to do.
But then things never come like that. What happens is when there is a change comes about, it always comes in the most unexpected way. So don't worry.
Just like
Forget
I'm ready. I'm trying to be prepared. So at least I'm a little bit.
No, the thing is to keep in the present. If you try to work out the future, you'll just be thinking about it all the time, and that won't let you stay in the present. So to stay in the present and keep doing the practice until one's absorbed in that.